Hi, everyone, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. So delighted on this episode to be talking with someone who I can already tell is a master of ambiance. I'm getting the sort of the diesel funk, the infinitum, post-apocalyptic sort of vibes here. So delighted to be talking with comics creator, author Tim Fielder. Tim, thank you for jumping on and talking with me.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I appreciate what you do in the world of comics, and I'll mention a couple of titles here at the beginning that I know you best for. One of those is Maddie's Rocket, which, yep, absolutely, right over there. Takes on those lovely pulp dynamics and takes the story in some really cool and interesting directions as well. And then Infinitum, that other one over there that I mentioned, an Afrofuturist tale. Yeah. They are surrounding you. All the books, all the books.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Everybody has to have a set in these days. I see your bookcase there. So, I don't know.
Mhm.
That is not an actual room. That is a projection behind it.
That's right. That's right. This is all smoke and mirrors. That's right.
Okay. For me, because I don't want to bog my computer down, I just said, well, let me just. And it used to be I was straight on, but now I have it to where my camera points down. It's more dynamic because you get that angle
I
happening. So,
like it.
yeah.
And your audience feels more powerful as well.
They
That's
feel more powerful.
mhm.
It's a unique angle. I know we're like, well, we're supposed to be talking about comics, but let's be honest.
Mhm.
We live in a world now where, in order to have your comic break out,
Mhm.
this is the first world where there's not five people deciding which comic's going to break and which comic isn't going to break.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? It used to be like that. You know what I mean? You'd have to be at certain age, a certain ethnicity to even be nominated for an Eisner, let
Mm.
alone win one.
Mhm.
But we live in a world now where there are people who are vastly more famous than those, artists I was talking about, but no one in the comic books industry, the superhero industry knows who they are
Mhm.
because they're
Mhm.
big on webtoons.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the world. So my theory going now is you have to be a combination of cartoonist and social media influencer.
Mhm. Mhm.
That is where I'm at now.
I love it. I love it. And I think there's great positives in that revolution, that movement, the openness for indie creators. And definitely there's been, as you mentioned, a lot of gatekeeping in terms of age, ethnicity, gender, things of that nature. So really nice to be
Oh
living in
yes.
this time. Yes. Yeah. So curious about this visual medium for you and what it allows you to do as a storyteller, because we've already hinted at some of the cinematography of the thing, sort of the Citizen Kane nature of the thing, but curious about what draws you to it.
Well, I've always been drawn to doing science fiction with at the intersection of black culture, race
Hmm.
politics.
Hmm.
It's always been just something I've done. First I used to feel embarrassed. Man, that's all you spent your life doing. I don't see anyone complaining with Stephen King when they do that. He
Hmm.
spent his entire life writing horror. With some, detours here or there. So that's what I did. I do Afrofuturism. I'm a visual Afrofuturist and a graphic novelist. Comics has been the medium that I've worked with since I was a young boy. Even earlier than starting as an Afrofuturist, I figure around between the age of 12 and 14 is when I formally started as an Afrofuturist. I didn't know what it was at that time. I
Hmm.
just called it black sci-fi. But as comics, I mean, as young as 7, 5, 7. I mean, I was drawing earlier. All of my siblings drew,
Hmm.
and the two older ones did comics. So as a younger sibling, you didn't really have any, choice to choose what your pastime would be. It was here's a paper, draw comics. So that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of family dynamics here. Lots of guests that come on that talk about the family dynamics of someone else in their family who shared comics with them. So, a very cool thing. You mentioned Afrofuturism, so I'm gonna jump here to I think the third question, and then we can sort of dovetail a little bit back. So for listeners out there that are not as familiar with Afrofuturism, I think the first time it really struck me as an area, a genre or subgenre, was the film Black Panther, Ryan Coogler. I walked out of that film going, "Oh my gosh, what did I just watch?" But
Right.
that's been very recent
Yes.
in the history of publishing and
Yes.
film. So curious about what you would share with listeners who are not initiated into it.
Well, I think while Afrofuturism as a term is only been in existence since 1993, the concept has been around for hundreds of years,
Hmm. Hmm.
if not thousands of years, but certainly within the kind of modern day construct we have now, going from Jim Crow, the post civil rights, to, I don't know if I agree with post black, but those things are colored by the world we live in,
Hmm.
as how race is dealt with in the present. So Afrofuturism has always been about being a person who is of color, engaging in this kind of speculative scenario
Hmm.
with agency.
Hmm. Hmm.
Your character will not be sacrificed so that the white character can have some kind of mandate to become Dirty Harry.
Hmm.
You know
Hmm.
that's not what the case. There would be no sacrificial lambs. There will be characters who, the main character would escape the zombie apocalypse and not be shot down by the sheriffs out the door shooting down zombies, but not understanding why is this zombie screaming, "Don't shoot, don't shoot," that type of thing. So yeah, that's pretty much as I see it, how these things kind of parlay themselves together. So Afrofuturism has been around for a while, but in that mainstream context where it broke out into the public, zeitgeist, will definitely be 2018.
Hmm. Hmm.
A little bit before there was excitement. You can tell with Civil War, that movie. But then with the double whammy of Get Out and Black Panther, that's when things changed.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I can say they changed for me personally, because all of a sudden, uh, it wasn't, people were interested, and not just audience members, but institutions were interested, and that was new. Uh, I was by the vice president's residence recently. I was invited to a gathering there where they were celebrating Black visual artists, mostly all fine artists, obviously.
Hmm.
Myself and my good friend Eric Wilkerson were there. Where he's in the video game sector, I'm in the comic sector, but we're Afrofuturists, and probably the first been in that environment. But I'm just bringing it up to state that we're outside security, and all of us are about to go in. And this one gentleman who was an art collector says, "So what do you do?" And I had been asked that question about 3 times that evening. "What
Right.
do you do?" And I'm like, "I'm a graphic novelist."
Hmm.
"Graphic novelist? What's that?" "Well, I do I make stories in visual form." "Okay, what does that mean?" "Highfalutin comic books." "Oh, yeah, 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 yeah."
Right. Right. Right.
What kind of, okay, so what kind of graphic novels do you make? Afrofuturism, things like that, a visual Afro. "Oh, you're one of the Wakandas."
Right. Right.
"Yes, I'm one of the Wakandas."
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that's literally happened. That happened. That actually happened. And aside from the other two, what do you do? I'm a graphic novelist. So yes, that is what has occurred. That is what is happening.
Hmm.
And I'm grateful to be in this space doing it. It's a privilege to do it. I didn't think it would happen at all, frankly. I could say, well, I didn't think it would take so long. No, I didn't think it would happen at all.
Hmm.
Now that it has, that people call, I didn't contact you, you contacted me. That's new.
Absolutely.
That's new.
Hmm.
That's new. And I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. And may it continue.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that you point out the agency aspect of Afrofuturism because that's key. And I would also say to listeners, there's a lot more going on in comics or graphic novels or whatever term you want to use than Wakanda. Wakanda's great, but there are lots of things going on to explore and to dig into, including Maddie's rocket.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. It's
Hmm.
just, and I had to mention this. I was in a panel at the Smithsonian the other day, and someone this question variations of this question of this theme keeps coming up. Is like, is there more than Black Panther?
Hmm.
And I get it because when Black Panther broke, beyond the people who actually worked on the film, the vast majority of the people who got most of the media attention were directly involved with Black Panther. They were either involved with making the movie or they worked on the comics,
Hmm.
or the comic they were working on, the novel they were working on was kind of slightly adjacent. It wasn't 5 people, now it's 50 people
Hmm.
or going up to 100. So now that's been what, 5 6 years ago. Now here we are in this kind of new world where people who've been around for years, I've been doing this, I'm 57 now, so I've been doing this literally since I was 12 13 years old. So now people like me are being brought in, and of course, on my end it's about finishing the work, and there was not that case for a long time before.
Hmm.
So it's an interesting place to be in, and I mentioned that because there are so many Black independent operators who do kind of Afrofuturist concepts.
Hmm.
One of the folks who I don't mention enough is Jason Reeves, who does One Nation, with 133 Art project. It's just interesting. He has so many different types of characters, and he can draw. He's really really amazing illustrator. So and manufactures his own comics. A lot of people don't
That's
know that.
cool. That
He
is very
prints his
cool.
own comics in his own print shop. And because he does that, he prints a lot of other independent creative stuff.
So cool.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, someone that has their talents in the illustrating and the creating, the storytelling, but also that side of it. That's a great combination.
He is really a triple threat.
Yeah.
Jason, I can put you in contact with him, but he's a triple threat. He really is.
Yeah, yeah, would love to talk to him. Um, but I'll also say I love the way you weave history in, talking about Jim Crow, talking about those movements in history, and I think that's part of the power of Maddie's Rocket, and really considering like the way things kind of get to be viewed through science fiction, because I feel like that's part of that futurism is we're talking about the future, but we're also talking about right now and what's been and what's to come, hopefully, or what we hope is not to come.
Yeah, well, the nature of science fiction in general is you're dealing with issues through a certain level or of more or less extremes of proxy.
Hmm.
You,
Hmm.
you can't really deal with the true depths of slavery easily.
Hmm.
So let's just make them aliens who are enslaved, or put it on another planet, that type of thing. That's all it is,
Hmm.
you know. But I do this type of work because that's just part of my charge to do it. I don't, it's not that I don't want to do period work. I do, I love it, but I'm doing it because it has to be done. That work was never done over the last 100 years,
Hmm.
certainly not visually. So it's my job to do that so that no one has to start from scratch. This is not to say there won't be other period-based Black science fiction that come along,
Hmm.
but it we want to start getting rid of the first plural as quickly as possible and as
Right.
efficient as possible. So that's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But I'm happy to say I'll be working on something contemporary very soon. Thank God.
Wonderful, wonderful. I was going to ask about the future projects and all of those things as well.
Yeah.
Um, oh, sorry.
What's up?
Oh, just making sure I had a pop up, but I'll chop that part.
Oh,
Um,
I did not see the pop up. So
great, great. So curious about in particular the kind of the pulp style that you bring and the attraction that you have to that sort of look and feel.
Yeah, thank you for asking me that question. I don't get to talk about it enough. I mean, I do mention Ralph McQuarrie.
Hmm. Hmm.
Ralph McQuarrie is one of the greatest artists, period, who ever lived. Again, some of yours like, who the hell is Ralph McQuarrie? Well, Ralph McQuarrie designed Star Wars. He
Hmm.
designed the look, the vibe. I mean, along with two, I think not quite as big in an impact, but just as influential as Joe Johnston and John Barry. Late John Barry was was a production designer on Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, and Joe Johnston, who would go on to do was it Jurassic Park 3, and
Hmm.
what else did he do? He did
Captain America.
Captain America, the first Avenger. He did the Rocketeer movie.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
a lot of people don't realize Joe Johnston is one of the baddest concept designers who's ever lived. He worked for ILM for years, which leads me back to Ralph McQuarrie. Ralph McQuarrie, I think I would consider his only equivalence, true equivalence, to be Ron Cobb, who, if you take Ron Cobb out, you don't have Alien.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Sid Mead. If you don't have Sid Mead, you don't have Blade Runner
Right,
and
right.
Aliens. But Ralph McQuarrie, who was a contemporary of Sid Mead, uh, just changed the game. Movies were not even made the same way
Hmm.
till he came along and designed it. Uh, and he had such an influential effect on me in the 70s that I began to try to mimic his style. Him and
Hmm.
Mobius had a
Hmm.
tremendous Mobius as well. But Mobius was different. Mobius was just very much more eccentric. But you're asking about the pulp styling. So 3PO was designed by Ralph
Ralph
McQuarrie.
McQuarrie. Yeah.
And that was an offshoot of Maria from Fritz Lang's Metropolis, the
Uh-huh.
Maria Golden robot. And Metropolis is a brilliant movie. But ain't no black people there, man. What happened? What happened to
True.
all the black people in Metropolis? And what did you? Where are they? Are they living in one building? Are they around?
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Good
my
point.
parents, my dad was born in 1934. My mom was born in 1938. Uh, I was like, it's Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon's out. Where the black people at, man? There are
Hmm.
no black people there. So I love pulp stuff. I love Hal Foster, Alex Raymond. I love those cartoonists.
Hmm.
Love the work they did. They had such a tremendous influence on me. But there are no black people there, right?
Right, right.
So my intent was, you know what? I'm going to do a pulp story that would, if in a different world, my mom and dad had the opportunity in the 30s to
Mm-hmm.
see people that look like them in a kind of a science fiction Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon thing, this is what it would be.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I love Doc Savage. I love James Bama with his Doc Savage covers, with the Steve Holland covers. I love that stuff.
Hmm.
But there are no black people in it. So
Yeah.
my job is to fill in the missing gaps, the missing DNA, if you will. That's my job. And uh, I have at times thought, man, I'm making some ground.
Mm.
I will not be able to finish everything I'm trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so with that in mind, just thinking about this sort of breaking open of Afrofuturism, the kind of more widespread popularity and attention, um, any words about or ideas about the next generation coming up? Any, you mentioned Jason Reeves, any um, folks that are coming along that you would want to give a shout out to as the stories continue to be told?
Well, I've mentioned a lot of the others. I mentioned the Greg Anderson, Ely Sage, and those that
Mhm.
group. But if I could just mention, I mentioned Jason Reeves and 133 Art. I mentioned Victor Dandridge,
Mhm.
TJ
Mhm.
Sterling, that group. There are just so many, and in fact, it's like if you really want an unending legion of artists to interview that have produced comics
Mhm.
consistently, over the years now. They got a little. They got a little blood underneath the fingernails now. They got some mileage on them. I
Hmm.
could connect you with people who would be able to put you in contact with them. But there's just so many. And, I'm trying to figure out a way to say, I don't know all of them.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
their faces, but it's like, I can, yeah, well, there's Robert Rose, but Robert's my age. It's just a lot. It's a lot of people that have been doing this game, and I'm going to take a moment. There's this guy named Machindo who is this brilliant uh, uh, concept designer, comic book artist. I mean, he really specializes in the visual stuff, and he's been in the game for as long as I have,
Hmm.
and for a period, I guess certainly done more that's been publicly featured. But I'm not seeing enough of a mention of him.
Hmm.
And I don't know if that's the media's fault, but it doesn't matter. But I'm just going to take a moment here to say this guy, if he ever sees this interview,
Hmm.
it's brilliant. And the world would be made better if he were seen and his work was seen more.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will get, well, I mean, I don't even really care. I was about to say, I don't know if this will get me in trouble, but I don't care. It's just, it's time. You
Yeah.
know, Richard Roundtree just passed away last,
Today. Yeah.
you know, it's going to end. All of this is going to end. Everybody that we see is going to eventually be worm food.
Hmm.
Yeah, let's get to it. Let's get to it. All right, enough of that. But I just had to say that.
Yeah. Yeah. Give us the name one more time so folks can
His
check him
name
out.
is Machindo,
Mishindo.
Mshindo.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Glad to share that. And so, what do you hope readers, as they're exploring these worlds you're creating, what do you hope readers kind of take away from them? And that is a loaded question because I know it has a million implications, but just something that you're resonating with, exploring that you really want to share.
Right. Well, you asked those questions earlier, and that was the answer that resonated with me more. At the end of the day, you just wanted to be compelling entertainment.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, I
Hmm.
got my views of the world, and I have what I hope they take from. But you just please don't be bored.
Right, right.
Don't be bored. You can hate it. You can love it. But I'm hoping that they won't be disinterested.
Hmm.
That's the kiss of death. And not to say that I haven't created work that people could be disinterested in. I'm just simply saying that comics is a medium that's just as uh dex dexterous. I don't know if the word is that's the right
Hmm.
word,
Hmm.
as film, as animation, as live action film, as novels. And I would say, separate from the Afrofuturist modality, just as in a general sense, we have to begin to expand. When I say we, I'm not talking about you guys. I think there is a overabundance of comics journalists out there,
Hmm. Hmm.
whether they be in the academic space or be in the fandom space. There's just not a shortage of comic blogs and vlogs. They're just out there,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I mean, hell, even I got one. It's not comics per se. It's just me doing portraits. But in the next week or so, I'm now going to start introducing my recorded sessions where I'm showing how I work.
Right,
It
right.
has to be done. But that's what I'm talking about. There has to be more. I would love to see the industry. People talk about the big two, Marvel and DC, but it's like, yeah, big two compared to what?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's big two compared to the superhero comic book industry, but much bigger than those are the graphic novel industry. Much
Hmm.
bigger. They make more money. The what comic book industry, give or take 1 billion a year.
Hmm.
The trade industry, 26, 27 billion dollars per year.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So you could just do the math and see that the comics industry needs to engage in a more got milk mentality. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? He said, the other white meat. I know some people are like, what is he talking about? It's like, for the audience, it's like there was a point where people were stopping drinking milk. They were not drinking milk anymore. It was starting to go down. So in the 80s,
Hmm.
the milk industry, all of the dairy providers got together and created a campaign called Got
Got
Milk.
milk. Hmm.
And they got people like fashion models. I remember Naomi and Campbell doing one to
Hmm.
basically go around with a little bit of milk in their top lip.
Hmm.
And
Elmo had the milk thing.
Elmo had it. And they brought milk back into good standing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, Pork,
Hmm.
was having an issue. Or was it chicken was having an issue? Maybe pork was having an issue, and they literally came up with a campaign called "The Other White Meat."
Hmm.
So that's comics needs to do that. I think comics. It's the first time I've ever answered that sort of question that way.
I
It's
like that.
comics, the entirety of comics. I know some people, oh, you can't change the ethnicity of these characters, and it's like, yeah, you couldn't, but
Yeah.
I think we have more serious problems than that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, our problem is our industry. If you're talking about superhero comics, is aging rapidly.
Hmm.
Everybody is in their 40s and to 60s. They're older. They're not young, young, young. My son's the youngest reads comics, but that's
Hmm.
because I'm a comic book artist and I made them read comics. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? But not all kids do that. The vast majority most of their comic reading comes from webtoons.
Yeah. Yeah. This is true. This is true. I'm trying to think of like a slogan here that could fit with comics, but that's probably somebody else's job.
Oh, it's
And
easy. It's
yeah,
easy. Yeah. Got comics.
got comics. Where's the comics? Where's the comics?
That's the point. That's the
Hmm.
whole thing. Got comics? Sure. You see what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
like if you designed a campaign where you reached out, and I encourage you to do it. Take it, take it, take it. I encourage you to contact 200 cartoonists
Hmm.
in accordance with your school. What's your school again? What's your school?
Wilkes Central High
Wilk
School.
Central. Connect with the Billy Ireland Museum
Hmm.
and propose a concept where artists will literally talk and say, "Got comics" to the video camera.
There you are.
And they show their comic and keep it to 30 seconds,
Hmm.
right? Keep it
Hmm.
to 30 seconds. And in fact, it needs to be more than 100. It needs to be about 1,000 cartoonists,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But basically, your job is to look in the camera and say, "Got comics? Here's my comic, Maddie's Rocket."
Hmm.
You can
Hmm.
find it here, here, here. 30 seconds. You send it into one place, and basically, there'll be a social media campaign.
I
Well, you
like it.
just send that out every day. And you're not trying to make a profit. You're just trying to affect the medium of comics.
Hmm.
In
Hmm.
fact,
Are you going to kick this off?
say it, and go.
Action.
No, you're supposed to say got comics
Oh,
and
okay. Let me try again. All right.
go.
Got comics?
Yes, I do. Maddie's Rocket. This is my comic from Diesel Funk Studios. My name is Tim Fielder. Go to www.dieselfunk.com. DIESELFUNK. Peace. See? Now, if
30
you got
seconds.
that from 1,000 comic book artists from all backgrounds, genders, persuasions, they can be liberal, progressive, conservative. It doesn't matter. Just
Hmm.
got them to say that into their iPhone with their project, but you gotta be 30 seconds or
Yeah.
less.
I like it. I like it. I feel
And you
called to
sent that,
this.
you understand what I'm saying? You
Hmm.
sent that out. One, maybe your school, Billy Ireland is cool. Yeah, I love him. But I'm
Hmm.
just saying, okay, you got to get your thing. You hopefully you got tenure. I don't know if you have tenure, right? But something like that is so revolutionary.
Absolutely.
Just
Absolutely.
think what would happen if you had one cartoon going out, one clip, 30
Hmm.
seconds every day, got comics
Hmm. Hmm. For 1,000 days.
for 1,000 days.
Hmm.
What kind of effect do you think that would have?
I think people would start to see that comics is maybe not just that one thing that they thought it was.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So Jason, I am encouraging you to take this project on
I love
because
it. I love it.
no one else is going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Someone needs to be willing to do the blood work, the dirty work,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? I always think about Greg Preston. I think that's his name. He's the guy who takes a picture of all the artist studios.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's Greg Preston. I think it's Greg Preston. I reached out to him once. Eventually, I would like for him to come in, but I got to clean this place up, before I do that. But yeah, something like that. I would love to see that.
That would be cool. That would be cool. That might be a reason for me to get on TikTok.
If you do that, if you do that, I will work with you to do that.
Okay.
I'm sitting up here thinking to myself, okay, so you're gonna dump all this stuff in this guy's lap and just not do anything. It's like I can reach people on
Hmm.
my end and say, look, this is what I need you to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I need you to point a camera to yourself with your comic and
Hmm.
just do that. And nobody's getting paid. There's
No.
no objective. You're not getting paid. You're not trying to one up anybody or whatever. All you're doing is saying, got comics, state your name, what your comic is, and where it can be found,
Hmm.
and send it to this specific location. And every day, and actually, if you got 1,000 cartoonists, basically what would happen is you could do multiple campaigns a day. And what it would do, because of the sheer volume,
Hmm.
it would change the public's perception of comics.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, none of the old heads they're not thinking that way. They're thinking, you know, I get it. I get it. I'm an old head now at this point. I have no hair in my head. That's how old I am. But yeah, that's not only sounds like fun, that seems like something that I'm sorry, we totally go. This
Oh,
interview
it's
has
good.
gone
It's
off
good.
the
I like it.
rails, folks. It's like we were just talking about Afrofuturism and the magnificent of comics. I'm just saying, I'm tired of seeing cartoonists who are in their 70s and 80s at these conventions.
Hmm.
And it's clear that they're having difficulty financially.
Hmm.
And they,
Hmm.
they can't necessarily pay the bills, but they're hoping they can sell some pages
Yes.
just to make ends meet or to pay their medical bills.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the only way to do that is the public needs to become aware
Yeah.
of the medium first. We got to do a got milk equivalent.
Hmm. Hmm. So as we're coming to time, and I want to respect your time, any next creative steps, next journeys that you're thinking about creatively? You said you have more vision than you have time for, so just curious about what's on the
Yeah.
horizon.
Yeah. Maddie's Rocket 2 and 3 I'm working on.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, I feel like that entire series, if I can get it done over the next, 5 to 10 years, will be about somewhere between 6 to 8 books.
Great, great.
I'm not gonna, do a Mezzadis with the Valerian. I don't know if I'll do 26 books, but that was pretty much looked like most of all that he did. I have other
Mhm,
interests in that.
mhm.
I will be doing the sequel to Infinitum eventually.
Fantastic, fantastic.
I am presently working on an adaptation of W.E.B. Du Bois's The Comet, the short story that he did
Awesome.
in 1920, science fiction story, and I'll be done with that by late January with the intention of showing that to to during the Carnegie Hall Weimar Republic Festival.
Awesome.
Let's see, what else am I working on? I'm working on my first middle grade series, which I can't go into. Thank God,
Yeah.
because I got to get it. First I was like, man, I'm doing all these adult graphic novels. I mean, whether it was, epic science fiction, I've done it. Most people are like, man, I want to do an epic science. I want to do something that's epic. Yeah, I already did that.
Right, right.
I'm going to continue to do it, but I got to get into some of this middle grade what is it? Hotness is what I'm.
Absolutely.
So man, the middle grade space is really hot. So I'm doing that. I got 2 projects I'm working on that. One in particular, I think will will probably come first. I'm going to be doing a graphic biography of my late cousin Ralph Boston, the Olympic long jumper who beat Jesse Owens' record. He
Oh
passed
wow,
away, and myself and my twin brother promised him on his deathbed we would finish a documentary on him.
wow, wow.
And I told him I would finish the graphic novel, so I have to finish that. What else is there? Movies. I have an identical twin brother. We will be finishing the first season of our TV show in the next few days. It's been going on for a while now, trying to edit everything, but we got to get it in the next few weeks. Documentary film called Black Metropolis on my career,
Great, great.
which is, we've worked on it the last, 2 years, and it's almost done with new updated interviews and things like that. Next month in November, I'm releasing, along with my good friend, Dr. Walter Grayson, the graphic history of hip hop, which is a 24-page comic that is put together by the New York City Department of Education in their Civics for All group, which is crazy. My catchphrase is, I've been drowning in rappers now for the last 5 months,
Nice,
and got to
nice.
drown more because we just got the green light to start on issue 2, and that'll be released in conjunction with New York City. The mayor will be showcasing that comic in concordance with November being ordained as Hip Hop Month for New York City.
Nice,
So
nice.
that's going to be big because 100,000 copies are going to be distributed to city schools.
Fantastic.
I've never had 100,000 copies of anything.
Mm.
So this is going to be interesting. Let's see. Is there anything else? Carnegie Hall's Festival coming up. My artwork will be on display from January to May. I'm still in the Smithsonian Afrofuturism show, that one there. History of Black Futures. I'm in that show. It started open in May of this year. It was supposed to have gone to May of next year, but now they've extended it to June of next year. So, and I've now started working with the Smithsonian doing workshops. So my life has utterly changed over the last 2 years. I think that covered most of everything.
You are a busy and enterprising man, and I'm glad that your voice is out in the world, and glad that you're making the things that you are. I was introduced to Rod Wave earlier today
Okay.
in the world of hip hop, and
Mhm.
my first comment was to my students, I was like, "This reminds me a little bit of the Fugees in kind of a way," and they were like, "Who?"
Yes.
So we had to go
See,
pull up some
I
Fugees.
didn't think that was important, but I so understand now. I must have painted for this comic got to be between 130 and 150 rappers. And
Wow.
did you just realize I could talk to my sons, guys, do you know who Cool Mode is? And I'm not a huge hip hop person, but I've had to do a deep dive on it to make sure everyone was captured, anywhere from Little Kim and there were people we missed,
Yeah,
people we
yeah,
couldn't put in there because of other issues. It's just, we'll never finish.
yeah,
Well, we will finish. There'll come a point where we say we're done, but it will never really be finished.
yeah, yeah. And then hopefully somebody else takes it on and carries it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you, sir, for your time. I appreciate the challenge. I think this is the first podcast I've done where I've been given sort of a mantle of challenge. So I
Oh,
love
I'm
it.
sorry, man. I didn't mean to do that to you. I'm sorry.
No, I love it. I love it. It works.
Okay.
It's
Well,
it's
got
totally a good
comics.
thing.
In with that. That's your new end phrase. Got comics.
That's right. That's right. All right. So here it goes. Are you ready?
Yes.
Got comics?
There you go.